This question says, a cylindrical tennis ball container. Okay, so they're talking about the container, and they tell you what shape is it. It is. What shape is the container? A cylinder. Good. It's just large enough to hold how many tennis balls? 3. So 1, 2, 3. The first thing you have to do is determine the volume of one tennis ball. Volume. What shape is the tennis ball? It's a sphere. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find the volume of a sphere of one tennis ball. So we just did this. What is the formula for volume of a sphere? 4 times pi times r cubed divided by 3. The only thing you need when you're calculating the volume of the sphere is to know the radius. That's the only thing you need to plug in. Looking at this diagram, are we given the radius? Do we know what the radius is? What does this line, what does this dimension from one side of the circle to the other, what does that represent? The diameter. So the radius would be whatever the diameter is, and then what do we have to do with that? Divided by 2. The radius is half the diameter. 6.7 divided by 2 is equal to what? 3.35. So now we know that if that's the radius, we have to take that number and we have to plug it into our formula. I want everyone to write down what are we calculating. So we're going to take 4 times 3.14 times what? How many times do I multiply that by itself? 3 times. Excellent. And then what do we have to do with the answer? What's important in the volume of a sphere? Don't forget this part like you did. Divide all of that by 3, okay? If I just do the numerator, 472.19791, and then we have to make sure we divide it by 3. What is the volume of one tennis ball? Divide that by 3, and you should get what? 157 decimal, let's round it off to the nearest tenth, centimeters cubed. Okay, so that's the volume of one tennis ball. Now we're going to get into the difficult part of this question. It says, before we do that, find the volume of the container, which is a cylinder. So now we have to find the volume of a cylinder. What is the formula for volume of a cylinder equal to?
Pi r to the power of 2 times height.
Okay, now for the formula of a cylinder, we need to know the radius. Do you know the radius of the cylinder?
Well, no.
Not exactly.
Well, did we calculate it?
Yeah.
We said that the radius of the tennis ball, because the tennis ball radius has the same radius as the cylinder, right?
Yes.
So the radius of the tennis ball was what?
3.5.
Which means the radius of the cylinder is also 3.35. Now, this is the hard part. Do you know the height of the cylinder? No, but remember we talked about this last week? Look here, please, this is important. If this represents the radius, would you agree that if I draw from here to here, that's also the radius? So would you say that from here to here is the radius, and from here to here is the radius, and from here to here is the radius, and here to here, and here to here? How many times do I have to add the radius together to get the height? Look here.
6.
If I take this, this, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all of that together will give me the height of the cylinder. Yeah. So to get the height, I'm going to take the radius, which is what? 3.35, and I'm going to multiply it by 6 to get the height. Does everyone understand why I'm doing that? Because I'm adding up all the radius, and that will give me the height. So what is it? Yep, 20.1 centimeters is the height of the cylinder. Okay? So now I have the radius, and I have the height. We're just going to plug it in. So 3.14, let me write this on the other page, actually. It says, determine the volume of empty space in the container. Well, we know that this is the volume of one tennis ball. That was all they asked us to find, but we have to do an extra step here. To figure out how much space is empty, what do we need to figure out first? I know you know, I wanted someone else to answer, okay? I want to know how much space all 3 tennis balls take up so I can figure out what's the empty space inside without the tennis balls. So 1 tennis ball is 157.4. Okay, so I have 3.14 times, how do I represent radius squared? It's radius times itself how many times? Twice, not times 2. And then times the height, what did we say the height was? 20.1. Just multiply that together. Do I have to divide it by anything? No. Just multiply it together. The formula is just pi times radius times height. So what is your final answer for the volume of the cylinder? Okay, so we can round it off to 708.3. What's the unit? So this represents the volume of the container. What else do you think we have to find in this question? Let's go back to the original question. So this is 1 tennis ball. So like you just said, we're going to multiply it by 3 to get the volume of all 3 tennis balls all together. So we can figure out how much space the tennis balls take up, right? 1, 2, 3. What's the volume of 3 tennis balls? 472.2 centimeters cubed. Now the question said, how much empty space is there? Exactly like this question we just did. We're going to subtract. We're going to take the container and subtract the 3 tennis balls. And what do you get? 236.1 centimeters cubed of empty space.